This week on ANN, freedom for an Adventist pastor who spent almost 2 years in prison.
A refuge for vulnerable community members in London.
And a leading think tank on religious liberty explores freedom of belief in an increasingly diverse society.
These stories and more coming up.
This is ANN, a service of the Seventh-day Adventist World Church. Thanks so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, Adventist pastor Antonio Monteiro was released from prison this week, ending almost 2 years of detainment in the West African country of Togo. A ruling by the Lomé Court of Appeals acquitted Monteiro of charges of conspiracy to commit murder. He and several other men were arrested in March 2012 after an unreliable witness implicated them in a string of high-profile homicides. Monteiro's legal team and Adventist leaders waited outside the Lomé civil prison on Monday to greet the newly freed pastor. Monteiro's plight led to an outpouring of support from the Adventist community worldwide. Members led prayer vigils, social media campaigns, and signed a petition calling for his release. Church leaders say Monteiro and his family are expected to return to their home in Cape Verde in the wake of the ordeal. The family was living in Togo while Monteiro served as the Family Ministries Director at the local church headquarters.
We were very happy and pleased with Monteiro's acquittal and release in Lomé, Togo, for the charges brought against him. Of course, we were disappointed that it took nearly 2 years to get to that point, but having released Monteiro from prison, he's now with his family, and the church is very happy about that.
Adventist legal experts say the split decision by the Lomé Court of Appeals has left them with mixed feelings. The same jury that acquitted Monteiro found Bruno Ama guilty and sentenced the Adventist church elder to life in prison. Ama is currently considering his legal options, which include appealing the decision. Ama was among defendants the unreliable witness had identified as co-conspirators in a criminal network. The witness later claimed he had been coerced by law enforcement officers to identify alleged accomplices. His testimony was the only evidence in the case. The witness was also sentenced to life in prison.
When I received the news that Pastor Monteiro was free, was acquitted, I was so happy. It was in the middle of the night, but just after, I became aware that unfortunately Bruno Ama was not, and he was sentenced for life in prison. That was really a very mixed feeling about the result. But we are first happy about Monteiro because we prayed so long, we did our best to help both of them. And now we have on one side, we're happy, on the other side we are sad, very sad. But it doesn't mean we will stop helping. We will continue to pray, we will continue to bring our spiritual support and do our best to help, hoping that in a few months or maybe a few years, I hope, not too long, Bruno Ama will be acquitted too, because we believe he is innocent.
3 more of the Adventist Church's 13 world regions have completed their recommendations to the World Church's Theology of Ordination Study Committee. The denomination is in the midst of a 5-year process of studying the biblical foundation for ordination and its implications for women in ministry. Already the Church in North America, Inter-Europe, Trans-Europe and the South Pacific have recommended ordination without regard to gender. The Church in the Southern Africa Indian Ocean region is recommending not to ordain women as pastors. Now the Church in Inter-America says it will accept whatever decision the Adventist Church collectively makes. Similarly, the Church in Southern Asia said it would not object to a decision to allow certain areas of the World Church to ordain women to pastoral ministry. Both church regions said they found no biblical mandate for or against women in leadership. The Church in West Africa, meanwhile, voted unanimously not to ordain women as pastors. We'll report more recommendations as they are announced.
A shelter run by the Adventist Church in South England was full to capacity over the holidays, providing meals, warmth, entertainment, and safety for the homeless community. Shelter organizers and volunteers say the initiative provides a refuge for vulnerable community members who would otherwise spend the holidays alone. Organizers say many of the guests were regulars from a soup kitchen run by the church at Waterloo Bridge in central London.
It's been a great experience personally. I think one of the best gifts you can give to people is your time. It's been nice and relaxed. I've met a lot of interesting people working as volunteers, but also the guests who've been staying in the hostel all have an interesting story to tell that can really change your mind about and your perception of what it is to be homeless and what a homeless person is like.
Adventist religious liberty experts met in Athens, Greece last week for the annual International Religious Liberty Association Meeting of Experts. The think tank draws scholars and theologians from dozens of universities worldwide. The group discussed secularism, the Arab Spring, gender equality and human rights in an increasingly diverse society. Organisers say the discussion was especially relevant in a region where political, ethnic and religious divisions run deep. Next year's meeting of experts is planned for Florence, Italy.
The Adventist Church in the Mexican state of Chiapas has inaugurated a new headquarters. The three-story building includes a 240-seat auditorium, a television studio, and office space. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew government representatives and top church leaders to the facility for a tour. In 2012, the Adventist Church in Chiapas was reorganized to recognize membership growth and financial stability. Last year, the Mexican state hosted a religious freedom festival. Religious liberty is growing in the region despite its history of intolerance.
And finally in the news this week, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, hosted cooking demonstrations with fortified noodles in 5 communities in central Cambodia this week. The noodles are a good source of vitamins and minerals in a region where 2 meals per day are typically noodle-based. The demonstrations are part of ADRA's efforts to boost nutrition in the Southeast Asian country.
Coming up, why growing secularism isn't religious liberty's biggest threat.
The Lord's Supper is Christianity's sacrament that reminds us of what the true message of Jesus Christ is. That Jesus came to this earth, lived and died for all people of every tribe, every tongue, and every nation. Jesus forever did away with the idea that God is reserved only for a select few. Jesus reminds us that God loves us all and God created us equal. Can you imagine if Jesus came to this earth proclaiming anything but gospel? What if Jesus had come here and said, I have come here so that only the ultra-religious might be saved, so that those who are good enough might know me? That's not gospel, that's law. Instead, Jesus brought a radically different message. Jesus came so that all people might participate in the resurrection of Christ and experience the love of God. The physical and tangible life of Christ, which is symbolized in the Lord's Supper, is the bond by which all humanity is unified. There is a place for every person at the table of the Lord where we partake in the Lord's Supper. It is our calling as Christians to remind people that Jesus came for all of us, that we are all equal, that we are created by God, and that God loves us all. We are unified through the blood and the body of Jesus Christ.
Squirrel monkeys are very social. The kids like to play a lot. I'm now viewing them playing, wrestling, interacting, basically socializing. One of those young ones will definitely become a leader because he's outsmarting the others when they play wrestling games. The howler monkeys are typically recognized by the mane that you see. It's almost like a beard, almost like a lion would make a sound or would look like.
Coming to the Hope Channel in January 2014.
One thing that really overwhelms me is the fact that, I don't have a job. How am I going to provide for my family? During that time, I recall trusting God to direct my path in this. Prayer is the exercise of faith, and by it daily, God bestows privileges upon us.
Welcome back. Adventist religious liberty advocates are wary of religions that seek political power and control. The current issue of Liberty magazine explores the need instead for inner spirituality that leads to kindness, peace, and understanding.
Many commentators looking at today's world see a problem with secularity, particularly people of religious faith in the United States. But I believe when you look at the global dynamic, secularity is not the problem, it's religion. There is way too much religion at work in the world today. And if you question that, just keep in mind what I saw recently, or I was told of recently, where a person looked on a cell phone broadcast from a friend of theirs in another country. They'd made a wrong turn on a road and ended up in the lair of religious fundamentalists. And the result, filmed live on the camera, was one man was beheaded because he had the wrong faith. What we're really looking at is way too much religion that seeks power and control over other people, and too little spirituality. In Liberty magazine, we're often trying to make that distinction. Religion without the spirituality easily leads to a seeking of political power, a control, a taking back of America for religion. That's the wrong sort of religion, even if it was taken back for it. What each of us need to aim for is an inner spirituality that moderates and controls our interpersonal relationships, that leads to godliness, to kindness, to peace and security all around the world. That is the ultimate religious liberty.
Communities along the Brahmaputra River in India are reeling in the wake of massive flooding. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency there is helping rebuild lives.
Recovery after India's wet season is a gamble. For some, cleanup is done within weeks. For others, it takes years to rebuild devastated lives. Tiny villages are along the banks and the islands of the Brahmaputra River. Families who can't afford their own land settle here for free on the government-owned property. For people here, the river is both their lifeblood and a curse. Recent flooding destroyed many of these impoverished communities. Homes leveled, crops and livestock washed away, lives ruined by the temperamental river they call home. ADRA has a continued presence in India, and we know that it's not enough to just clean up the mess after a catastrophe. We help survivors rebuild their homes, their communities, and their lives. The shelters we provide after a disaster are designed to be appropriate for the region where they'll be used. Here, along the Brahmaputra, future flooding is always a possibility. So the shelters are strong and will last a long time, but they're also lightweight and can be taken down quickly and transported with relative ease to safer ground. They're made with families in mind and keep them safe from the elements outside. ADRA is dedicated to bringing life back to broken communities. Many who can't work receive grants to use wherever the need is greatest. Some buy food, some get materials to repair or rebuild their homes, some invest in replacing their lost livestock. After the initial emergency response, ADRA's work is far from over. There is much to be done to repair damage done by one disaster and to prepare for the next. We often organize work for men and women, fixing roads, building new facilities, and other improvements within their own villages. The cash they receive in exchange for their hard work replaces sources of income that have been washed away by the floodwaters. ADRA also works to ensure that villages like these have access to clean water. We dig new wells and water pumps, as well as repair damaged ones, for water good enough to drink. We also build latrines so that waste is kept in its place, and distribute hygiene kits to encourage cleanliness. After tragedy, distress, and disaster, ADRA helps people find hope, healing, and recovery. We're changing the world, one life at a time.
The current issue of Dynamic Steward explores the need for good stewardship beyond the tithe envelope or offering plate. Larry Evans has a preview.
When some hear the word stewardship, their first thought is about an appeal for money. But there's more to stewardship than money. When some hear the word health, they think of an absence of disease. But there's much more to good health than simply avoiding some kind of sickness. The current issue of the Dynamic Steward is filled with valuable insights about both stewardship and health. The theme for this issue is Stewards of God's Temple. Here are just some of the articles you'll find in this issue. Dr. Peter Landless, the new General Conference Health Ministries Director, speaks about why he feels that caring for our health is part of stewardship. Dr. Julian Melgosa reminds us that managing our thoughts and emotions is indeed part of our overall stewardship. Dr. Don Hall and Dr. Katja Reinhardt both speak about our health as spiritual responsibility, which impacts our entire life. Then Dr. Gary Frazier, the director for the Adventist Health Study, shares an overall view of the historic study showing the impact of diet upon our health. You see, by linking stewardship with our health, it's our desire that we will better be able to live out the motto, "My all for His glory." You may receive free quarterly electronic copies of the Dynamic Steward or subscribe to receive hard copies for $8 a year plus postage by emailing us at the address on your screen. Be sure to tell us if you would like the free electronic copy or the hard copy subscription.
Small action groups committed to outreach and ministry can help revitalize a flagging Sabbath school class. Jonathan Kunteroff explains.
Some Sabbath schools are facing various kinds of problems. Some of those Sabbath schools do not have a lot of people when they begin with Sabbath school, and some people are missing. And I would like to introduce to you something that will revitalize our Sabbath schools. And this is what we call Sabbath School Action Units. When we talk about Sabbath School Action Unit, all Sabbath School classes are small units that will do some action. We would like to suggest that we will have only 6 to 8 persons per class. And aside from the small classes, we have also a good time for fellowship, and this small class has lay leader or outreach leader. And this class also needs to have outreach plan. And something important, the need of having special time for missing members. We would like to encourage that before we begin Sabbath school classes, we have time to share our testimonies of soul winning activities and also try to find the missing members and plan to visit them. Encourage them to be visit and to come to Sabbath school and have time to study together and also be involved. By doing this, our Sabbath school classes will be revitalized and we can be more nurtured and we will be more prepared for the kingdom of God. Let us revive our members to be actively involved in witnessing activities.
Still ahead, a recap of the Great Hope Project.
But up next, an invitation to be the sermon, not just listen to it.
For meerkats, there is not just safety in numbers, there is also companionship. These agile creatures are able to kill and even eat venomous snakes and scorpions without being hurt. They are able to survive without drinking water, getting their moisture from eating certain plants. In dry parts of the world, animals need special skills to survive. Meerkats are no exception. Coming to the Hope Channel in January 2014.
I pray for wisdom from God to do really good in school and to do really good in piano and my piano lessons. I pray that all the people that are sick can become well, and whoever needs food should get food and be happy. Please pray 7 in the morning, 7 in the evening, and 7 days a week.
As I was reading through the Great Hope, this passage caught my eye. Thus the death of Christ was the climax of the proof that their belief had been correct. The reason this passage brings me hope is because I knew when I had first started out on my Christian walk, God had to save me. But it took a lot. It took His sacrifice and His death to show me that He was still alive today in my life. And because of His life, I'm here today talking to you about the Great Hope. And the reason it gives me so much hope, and that hope is placed solely in Jesus Christ. He is my everything, my Redeemer. He is my one great hope.
Welcome back. Adventist young people worldwide are gearing up for the second annual Global Youth Day. The service day invites young people to skip church and spend Sabbath demonstrating God's love in their communities.
A child wondering where her next meal will come from. A woman without a home, forced to sleep in the street. A forgotten grandparent with no familiar face to brighten their day. A family unable to care for their everyday needs. People that we pass every day but have stopped seeing. It's a human problem. Today or 2,000 years ago, in Uganda or America, China or Brazil. Instead of passing by, what would happen if we, Seventh-day Adventist youth, stopped and helped? If each of us in our own corner of the world reached out to those in need and made a difference in being the hands and feet of Jesus. On Sabbath, March 16th, 2013, we tried an experiment. Instead of going to church, we, the Adventist youth, went out and lived the sermon. In our towns, in our countries, in our world. In 24 hours, 8 million youth made an impact in others' lives, bringing the gospel to our communities through acts of kindness. This year, we can do more. We spend most of our Sabbath studying what it means to be followers of Christ. It's time to take one Sabbath and live out the sermon. This year, we can touch a life. We can transform a community. We can change the world.
For our Tech Corner this week, Andrew King has tips on shooting video with your smartphone.
Here at Adventist News Network, we're always searching for the latest news story from all different parts of the world. And this doesn't mean we only search from our network of professional journalists. You have the opportunity to submit a news story directly to us. What you need to do is go to our website, news.adventist.org. On the right, you'll see a little link that says Submit a News Story. That's where you can find all the details to send us the story. Now, this could be a written story, this could be a great photo and caption, or this could even be a video, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. If you submit a video, you don't need to have a big professional video camera. Everybody has these days, smartphones. And smartphones actually take pretty good video. But there's a few tips that I want to give you that'll make your videos even better. The first thing is, professional video cameras are heavy, and that helps to keep things a lot more steady. These cameras are very lightweight, and so you're going to need to really think about how to hold the camera, maybe pull it into your body, lean up against a wall, or sit with your elbows on a table to keep that shot still. The second thing you're going to want to keep in mind is that you want to always hold the camera horizontally. The wide part of the video should be horizontally. And that will make it look a whole lot better when we're watching it on TV or when we're looking at it on a computer screen. The last thing I want you to remember is audio. Professional cameras, either someone's holding a microphone or there's a microphone connected directly to them. When you're shooting a video with your smartphone, you're going to need to physically get as close as you can to the person who's talking. That way we can hear everything that you have to say. So please go to our website, news.adventist.org, and share your video news stories with us.
Adventist Publishing Ministries has headed up the distribution of more than 140 million copies of The Great Hope, an adaptation of church co-founder Ellen White's classic, The Great Controversy. Publishing leaders say the project changes lives around the world.
Brother Sikimbozo, he owned a nightclub. He was in darkness. His life was a mess in a way. But he read the book Great Hope. After reading the book Great Hope, the Lord just changed his heart and he decided to close down the nightclub. Not only that, he became evangelist immediately, right away. And he started to preach the gospel. He prepared himself for baptism. And when he was baptized, he was not baptized alone. He was baptized with 20 converts. The Lord used him to reach them. many stories to tell. Only eternity can tell us the true impact of this project, Great Hope.
This book is impacting people in many different wonderful ways.
The program has been a great blessing.
The Great Hope has demonstrated to us the commitment of our people to witnessing for Jesus Christ.
Public evangelism through literature is becoming a fundamental part of the church members' lifestyle in South America.
We are still at it, and we feel that the Lord is giving us a lot of blessings as we take part in this campaign.
This is, I think, a book that will bring and that has brought great hope in the lives of many people.
The impact was tremendous.
This project has been something very special. We don't think it's ended yet.
The Great Hope Project is coming to an end, but the mission continues. The mission to spread the good news about God's love and His soon return in glory and majesty.
Now let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history. This week, the church makes strides in education in India.
This week in Adventist history is notable for the beginnings of new educational institutions. On January 12, 1919, missionary M.M. Mattison opened a new mission school in India, in the town of Hapur in the province of Uttar Pradesh, about 55 kilometers northeast of the capital, Delhi. The North India Girls' School started with 8 students. Today, it is Hapur Seventh-day Adventist Senior Secondary School, operated by the Northern India Union. On January 14, 1878, the Health and Temperance Missionary School opened in Battle Creek in the U.S. state of Michigan with an initial enrollment of 75 students. The school was an outgrowth of Battle Creek Sanitarium, and it offered a mix of secondary and tertiary level courses. In 1895, it was transformed into the American Medical Missionary College. But sadly, the college was associated with Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, and he asserted control over it along with the sanitarium and was disfellowshipped. The College of Medical Evangelists in Loma Linda, California was founded to replace this college in Battle Creek. And on January 16, 1899, Cedar Lake Academy opened in Michigan. It was then a 10-grade school with 3 teachers and approximately 30 students. In the 1980s, it merged with 2 other academies to become Great Lakes Adventist Academy. That was this week in Adventist history.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
In the meantime, find us on Facebook. You can connect with other Adventists worldwide and find links to more stories, photos, and videos. Just visit Facebook/Adventist News.
Our good news for this week comes from the New Testament book of Matthew. The passage says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also."
That's our program for this week, and remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.